Desmond. How are you?
I'm doing good, Chris.
It's always good to sit down and chat with you here at Leading and Serving.
Absolutely. I love this.
So what are we doing today?
Well, I saw a news article about a dude who has set 2 Guinness World Records.
Oh.
Have you ever thought about setting a world record?
No.
No? Oh, man. You got to shoot higher in life. Let me tell you. Longest fingernails ever. No, I don't know.
A dude?
No, I'm just saying that's what you should shoot for. No.
I don't think so.
I remember reading Guinness World Book of Records. Mm-hmm. I'd always, take it out from the library in elementary school.
Yeah.
And that's the picture that I remember is the lady with the longest fingernails ever. And I was like, you can't ever touch anything.
Right.
You'll never.
How do you get anything done?
Yeah. If you have kids or cooking or writing, you couldn't even write. You couldn't pick it. Yeah. Anyway, so here's a guy who has found a passion in life and is like, I want to set Guinness World Records.
Yeah.
And so he falls in love with slackline. Are you familiar with slackline?
I think so. Isn't that
It's like tightrope in the circus.
Oh.
But you use
I thought it was an app. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Y'all go ahead and send your questions to Chris at. All right. So no, it's a
like tightrope thing.
It's like tightrope, but it's loose.
Slack.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's usually like a polyester band or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So his first world record was the highest slackline ever.
Oh wow.
And to do that, because people have walked from like downtown skylines, like top of buildings to top of buildings. I mean, they've.
Oh wow.
I mean, that's high. He was like, well, I got to take that to a new level. So he stretched a slack line between 2 hot air balloons.
What?
Yeah. Something like 6,000 feet above.
Oh, my gosh.
Like altitude above ground level where he was at.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it was like 18 meters maybe or something like that. It wasn't super long, but it was super high, right?
Right.
So he decides I'm going to set out on the longest slack line walk anybody's ever done.
On top of being the highest.
Yeah, he's already got the highest, so now he's going to do the longest.
Okay.
But that's not enough for him. Guess where he set up the longest slack line ever?
The Grand Canyon?
Close. Across the rim of an active volcano.
What? No way.
Absolutely. There's video of him, and you can see like the lava spurting up underneath. He's well above lava level, but it's got to be hot.
Right.
But it's completely across the rim of an active volcano.
That's
and there's
crazy.
video of this dude. And yeah. So I say that saying there is a moral to the story.
That's
of
good.
every story, probably.
Right,
okay.
Right.
We just talked.
Don't play with volcanoes.
Yeah. No, we just talked recently about setting goals for the new year.
We did.
And we used the phrase, who says you can't?
We did.
At some point, this dude sat there and was like, I want to do the longest slackline walk ever. Yeah. Set the record. And somebody's like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. Let's do it. And he goes, I want to do it on top of a volcano.
Can I just say we're not endorsing anybody to go over top of a volcano?
No. If you've never slacklined, I wouldn't brave more than your living room. Over a bunch of pillows. Put all the couch cushions down and then go. Right. But at some point in that process, somebody said, no way, man, you can't.
That's crazy.
You can't. No way.
Right.
And
he said, that's my 2022 goals.
Who says you can't?
Right.
So aim high.
Yes.
That's the moral of the story.
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, because
right.
I really got scared there for a minute. Thought you were going to try to get me to go over a volcano or something.
No, you just need to start with the couch cushions. You thought it was an app.
I did.
You download the app and then we'll talk.
Right. Oh, that's too funny.
All right. We got a good episode today. Despite all of that ridiculousness.
We do. We got to talk about our connector voices because we're number 4, right?
This is week 4. Yeah, we've talked about our nurture, our creative, and our guardian. And now we're going to talk about our connector. Our connector is a champion of relational networks. They love networking and connecting all of the dots between people. They're internal collaboration experts. They love being on teams. They love shooting for a goal. They're future-oriented. This is one of our future-oriented voices. And they really are champions at effective communication. They love getting up in front of a crowd or in front of a group or something like that and inspiring people to action toward a vision.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, connectors are, I mean, they love just persuading people. They love connecting people to dreams and vision and goals. They're a champion of resourcing. You know, hey, do you know where I could find a, a slackline guy? Oh yeah, he walked over a volcano. Yeah, he's the guy you need to talk to. They love connecting in that manner. Okay. So I've got a source, I've got a guy, I know something. Have you thought about this, or things like that? They have a unique ability to manage large amounts of connections.
Okay.
Connector is my second voice.
Yep.
But I don't necessarily have that unique ability. Some, but not really. I mean, I know people that just see. There's the connector voice. I know people, but are phenomenal at that. Yeah. They remember names. Right. They remember where you worked, where you graduated high school, what your spouse's name was. Right. They're amazing in that way.
Right.
And and so when you have a true first voice connector, they network all day long.
All the time. Yeah, it's natural.
Yeah, and but because of that, because it's so people oriented, connectors sometimes can fall into people pleasing tendencies because they're wanting to value that network. They're wanting to keep those connections, and so they want to make sure everybody's happy and good on that network. And they can. Unfortunately, they can also feel like critical feedback or even constructive feedback is personal, and so they have a hard time engaging with that and going, well, do you not value what I bring to the table? And so, this is, I don't understand where this feedback's coming from. I thought we were great friends.
Right.
We've been best friends forever. Right. And so, that's your connector. A way to liberate your connector. That if you've got one on your team or somebody close, celebrate life with them. They want to be seen and heard and understood. That at their best, they don't do a lot of separation of work, rest, and play. That doesn't come easy to them because they're just busy connecting the dots. They're busy, work and play, and all of that blends in together for them,
right,
in a lot of ways. And so let them live into that a little bit. They have a unique ability to do that. Regularly ask your connectors, what are you excited about? Tell me your stories.
Right.
Connectors are great storytellers. They want to tell their stories. They might tell you multiple times sometimes, but that's okay. Let them go. Never stop believing in your connector. They have strategic connections, and just keep dreaming, keep moving, we believe you can change the world, expand the influence of our team. They're the ones out there galvanizing the message of your team, of your organization to the community, to the world. They're world changers in that way.
That's
and
good.
So empower your connectors to live that way. We've been talking each week about the weapon system.
Right.
That this is our superpower, but it also can be our weapon, our weakness sometimes. Right. And so the weapon system that a connector brings to the table is actually the opposite of their networking. It's cyber warfare.
Yeah.
And in that way is that they really kind of, if the relational networks is like a web, spider web,
right?
They'll poison the web. They'll cut somebody out of the network.
Yeah.
If you if you didn't deal with integrity with me and I lose my confidence and trust in you, then I may not do it directly to you because critical feedback is hard for a connector. But if somebody says, hey, have you ever worked with so-and-so?
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that again.
Yep.
And, it's kind of the, what you see in social media, cyber warfare, right?
Right.
And so triggers for a connector. Triggers are people taking credit for your work. So you bring an idea to the table, you bring you accomplish this, or you connected these two people, and you kind of get pushed out of the celebration. That will trigger a connector. People not recognizing the validity of your ideas, that can trigger a connector. That I've got great ideas, I can change the world. We just don't think that's great. That feels very personal,
right?
And so that can trigger.
I can too.
You sense that people aren't for you. If you feel that someone in your network really doesn't have your best interests at heart as well, yeah, that'll trigger. That'll trigger. And so they want that reciprocal. I'm here to help connect you, so return that to me. Or if people aren't willing to play ball and collaborate and team, that is a trigger for a connector as well.
Yeah.
That they value that team connection, that collaboration together, that we're working toward a goal together.
Right.
And if you're not on board, we'll I'll make sure no other work comes your way, or
right.
Other people lose trust and faith in you as well, because
Right.
you've certainly proven that to me.
Right.
And so just as quickly as a connector will make that connection, they will sever that connection in terms of their weapon and their voice. So
good to know.
Along
Good to
the
know.
way, connector is our almost loudest voice. So they're louder than the nurturer, louder than the creative, louder than the guardian. That connectors will be heard in the room. Those first three voices may not be heard
Right.
in a room, around a team environment, around a table. But connectors are heard because as soon as you walk in the room, hey, Chris, how are you?
Right.
How's your wife? What are your kids up to? Hey, heard you went camping. How'd that go?
Right.
Everything just flows for a connector, that they want updates on people. And so they'll work the room. You'll know that they're in the room. And because they're impassioned communicators, when ideas come to the table, they will jump in the mix. And they love just, they'll jump into brainstorming and they're thinking in the future. Their voice will be heard around the table. They're not quite as loud as the pioneer that we'll get to next week. But they love to tell their stories. And so you'll probably hear the connector around the table.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Bet. So that's just a quick wrap of our connector voice, and
I'm so glad that we've hit these on the volume levels too. Like, I think that's a huge part of this as well. Is like
Absolutely.
recognizing if this is your first voice, there's a good chance that you're a little louder than the first three.
Connectors are not super comfortable with silence.
Okay.
So if somebody poses a question, and it's a hard one,
that's good.
They're not going to sit in the silence long.
And as we get into these last couple, right, these last two, this week we're connector, next week we're pioneer, talking about the louder voices. These are the people that we're waiting, like, hey, we need you to go last.
Yes.
Like, we need you to have the conversation. Like, we totally want to hear what you have to say, but we also need you to recognize that these quieter voices probably need to go first before you put your 2 cents in.
Right.
Not that we don't want your 2 cents. We want your 2 cents. We just want, just give us a minute.
Right. How are we going to experience 10% growth in 2023? Nurture, you're up.
Right.
Creative, you're up.
Right.
Guardian, then your connector, then your pioneer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Connectors are 11% of the population.
Okay.
First voice. Connector is often a secondary blend with a lot of the voices. But, first voice, true connectors, 11% of the population. So
cool.
There you go.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for reviewing that with us.
You bet. We've got
and obviously, if you have not taken the 5 voices test, it is free. Make sure you get the show notes.
Yeah, there is a free version available. Absolutely.
And get a hold of this so that you can understand where you're coming from and what your bents are too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This helps you understand the way you look at the world, the way you communicate to others, the way you prefer to receive communication.
Right. And maybe even to help yourself recognize what your own triggers or your own weaponization is for that, how you address things and how you communicate things.
Right.
So that way you can know better about what you're potentially going to be doing if you get angry.
Right.
Right.
I've actually seen people confirm what their voice is
by their weapon.
Because they'll look at a couple of voices and be like, oh, I do this, I do that, I do this one. I've got 2, maybe 3. Maybe that's my fountain. Right. Well, okay, let's talk about your weapon.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I don't want to.
No, we don't want to talk about the hard stuff.
And then that helps understand. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a new guest today.
We do.
And I'm super excited about talking to this guy. Yeah.
Tell me about him.
So this is Beau Jackson.
Right.
And he works for Modern Woodman.
Okay.
And
which is not a carpentry company, right?
Right. is a financial institution,
Right.
where they do financial planning and things.
And they're fraternal nonprofit, right?
Correct,
Okay.
which is just a completely different setup than most financial planners.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm pretty ignorant about what that means, so I'm looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, I mean, but they have a huge impact on many communities.
Yes.
And so I'm looking forward to chatting with him about some of what he does and how he's impacting the community and truly about his heart, because that's kind of what's gotten him involved with this organization, is that he's a dynamite guy.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to chatting with him.
Sounds good to me.
All right,
Let's go do it. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, Jason, I'm excited. Beau, thanks for joining us and hanging out with us today. We are excited about you being here. I know it's been a little bit of a process to get you here because you're a very busy man, so we won't cut right to the chase, my friend.
Cut right to the chase. We've been sitting here for 10 minutes laughing.
I know
before hitting record. So.
That's true.
That's true.
So now we have to get to the chase. So tell us a little bit about you.
About me. What do you want to know?
So where are you originally from? Indiana?
I am. Rising Sun, Indiana. You ever heard of it?
I have.
Small.
So we're obviously in Greenwood, Indiana now. But so give me some of that track of what happens. Give me some childhood growth process.
Yeah. Rising Sun, rural community.
Okay.
Grew up on a farm. And then came to Indy by means of Bloomington.
Okay.
So went to University of Indiana.
Okay.
Did a small stint there. Should have probably been a doctor by the time I had accumulated all those credit hours. But yeah, got a couple degrees and followed coaching.
Really?
So soccer brought me to Indianapolis.
What's the degrees in?
I have a degree. Actually, my first degree, this is going to be funny. I made it up.
You made up your degree.
I made up the degree. It was called the Individualized Major Program. So music business wasn't a degree offered at the time.
Okay.
And basically what I did is I went in front of a board and I proposed curriculum for taking the Jacob School of Music, which is world-renowned, phenomenal school of music, and married it with the Kelly School of Business. And so I actually got to pull courses together and said, hey, here's what I want to do with music business.
Yeah.
I want to do live events, personal agency, stuff like that. And they said, okay. So that was the first degree, was a degree in, I think we ended up calling it event management and creative strategy. Funny, I have 2 diplomas and they say 2 different things.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can say technically I have a couple degrees. And then I have a degree in psychology.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Was that, I mean, obviously that was after the thought?
It was. So I worked in the music industry while I was in school for about a year and a half. I was, I don't know if it's sorry to say, but an Axe ambassador.
Okay.
You remember the Axe body spray back in the
Oh,
day?
yes.
Yeah. So I did live events that they would sponsor, and I put that on.
Okay.
I found out very quickly the music industry is pretty intense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I decided if I didn't have a desk job by the time I was 25, 26, probably wasn't going to make it.
Really?
Yeah. I went through 3 bosses in the year and a half that I was there.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
So went back to school. I originally went to IU for medicine.
Really?
I wanted to be a pediatrician.
Okay.
So
those are kind of like all over the place.
Hence my laundry list of credit hours and student loans. But yes.
Well, but it's really impressive. Like, so the psychology thing was to trying to go back to get another job, like a desk job. And what was the hope for that? What was the goal for
psychology was to get into med school.
Oh, okay.
Because I couldn't get in music business. I probably could, but I didn't take any of the science classes necessary.
Right.
Gotcha.
So I did. I graduated in 2005. It was funny. I graduated, walked, and then I attended summer classes, going straight back in.
Wow.
And then did all the chem classes, all the biology, the physiology, anatomy, and decided that in that process, I started coaching quite a bit, soccer, and I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, I found out very quickly in the relationship I was in at the time that the doctor thing wasn't probably going to work out. Yeah, that might be a different podcast at some point in time.
No worries.
Yeah, but that being said, jumping into coaching, I saw it as kind of my calling, if you will. It's like, hey, I can help parents raise their kids by being a coach, by being an influence, being a positive influence on them.
Right.
And that I had an incident where a parent called me, and as a coach, you look down and you're just like, oh man, what do they want? Right, parents calling
Right.
you, you're like,
Right.
okay, what I do? I'm going through the last
Yep.
couple of weeks of training.
That's what I was like thinking too. I was like, what did
Not
I
enough
do?
playing time.
I don't think I yelled at anybody. Like,
Right.
was there something here?
Did I say
And-
something wrong?
Right, and she had, I answered the phone, and you know, she's like, hey, this is so and so's mom, and I was like, okay, how can I help you? She's like, well, you know, I just wanted to tell you that I have been trying to get my son to eat his vegetables for years, and we just left the grocery store, and lo and behold, he put green beans and other canned greens in the cart, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, wow.
Because I had made a big comment about what you put into your body, you know, what fuel you use is going to be whatever you're able to do on the field. So that kind of sealed the deal, and I was like, you know what? I think coaching might be it.
Yeah.
I'll give it a go. So
That's awesome.
that took me from Bloomington to Carmel. So I was in Greenwood. I coached at one of the local clubs here.
Okay.
And then I moved up and started coaching for Carmel United, and was fortunate enough to be a part of a national championship.
Wow.
Nice.
So
wow.
that was awesome.
Very cool.
I didn't know that.
I was a lowly assistant. Didn't have hardly anything to do but drive the vans for the most part, but a great experience out in LA.
Oh, wow.
That's
to be
cool.
with those guys.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then just worked my way up the club scene. Yeah.
But you had a stint outside of Indiana.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I did. I had a stint outside. So,
And how your family works into this timeline as well. Blend that into.
oh, yeah. Okay. So I actually, back to school, right? So I got my master's. As I was finishing my master's, I took a train ride out to Colorado because I'd heard all amazing things about Colorado.
Right.
And this was back in 2013. I graduated December 2013 and with my master's, and took the train out there and got stuck out there. Right? It was I don't know if you guys remember, there's a big ice storm that came through. Well, it froze up the tracks, so I ended up being out there for an additional week and a half. While I was out there, I was able to get reconnected with an old babysitter of mine. I think she babysat me. Up until that point, I hadn't seen her since I was like 5.
Oh, wow.
Her name, she wouldn't care, Laura, and she's a 15-time world champion in the summer biathlon. She's phenomenal.
Oh, my
athlete.
goodness.
No
Right, yeah,
way.
huge. Out of Rising Sun, believe it or not. And so I had reached out to her, got reconnected, and she's like, do you like Colorado? I said, yeah, I really enjoyed Colorado. It was awesome.
Great.
She's like, well, if you ever want to, move out here, I might have a job for you. I said,
Wow.
okay. So I got back home, and I called her up, said, I've been thinking about it. I'm interested. And she's like, well, I'll have my husband reach out to you. It's his business. And it'll be whether or not he wants to hire you. And I said, okay. So he called me up and he said, what are your credentials? What's your background? And of course, I told him my degrees, kind of like what I just, I just finished a master's of organizational leadership, and, pretty proud of myself at that point. And he goes, oh, that's cute, son. None of that's going to help you out here.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what he did. Right. Because
Right.
I never thought to ask, what would I be doing?
Right.
Yeah.
So enamored by Colorado.
Right.
And he was like, well, I'm a 6th-generation honeybee farmer.
Oh,
Yeah, honeybees.
wow. I didn't see that coming. I assume you were in the same position?
Yeah. I stood there. I was like, honeybees. He's like, yeah, we have about 2,500 colonies that we bring up and down the Rio Grande. Apparently, 20, 30 years prior, they were Keebler elves, graham crackers, whatnot, their biggest supplier of honey back in the day.
Wow.
Okay.
And they decided they didn't want to do that anymore. But I was like, why not? Sure. So I packed up the bags, threw the dog in the back of the Jeep, and hauled across the country to Colorado.
Oh, my goodness.
Lived in the San Luis Valley for about a year. Beautiful country. Have you guys ever been out that way at all?
Oh, yeah.
San Luis Valley is
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's a valley,
Yeah.
but it's not really a valley. You're surrounded by mountains, but you're still like 7,000 feet up.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. And there's Great Sand Dunes National Park, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's like a desert,
Okay.
but there's a disappearing river, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So I lived there for a year, and that's where Jennifer and so that's where the family kind of comes into
Oh.
play. She had started Johnson & Wales. They opened up their athletics, and she started their women's soccer program there.
Oh, wow.
She moved from Georgia a year prior. We knew each other from 2008 on, depending upon who you ask, when all of the
Right.
family stuff
No
started to
worries.
come into play. Yeah, but yeah, we moved in together in 2014, and she has her funny story about that. But moved in and then got engaged in 2000 would have been 16. Married in 2017.
Okay.
Soccer brought us back to Indiana.
To Indiana.
At the same time, we found out we were pregnant with our first.
Oh.
So, yeah, and the last 2.5 years have been a blur.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've been back in Indiana 2.5 years.
Yeah, since 2000. We got here September 2019, the week after Labor Day, and bought our house. We closed on our house January 21st, I believe it was. Had a big fundraiser February 1st. Atlas was born February 6th. Moved into our house February 16th.
Oh my goodness.
COVID hit March.
Right.
And so.
No doubt it's been a blur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Couple career changes.
So connect all these dots from music business, psychology, honeybee farming, growing up on a farm, right, to soccer coaching. What do you do today here on the south side of Indy?
Sure. So today I run a small financial planning firm here in Greenwood. We're a part of a much bigger national fraternal financial planning organization, Modern Woodmen of America.
Okay.
During my stint when we moved back to Indiana, I became an executive director for a small nonprofit here, a soccer club. Mm-hmm. And in the process, was able to make some really cool connections. And that's where kind of Lucas Hill, who's the regional director of Modern Woodmen, approached me, introduced himself. And through COVID and whatnot, career change took place, and decided to jump on board with them. Being a fraternal, I've always wanted to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. That's always been a huge passion of mine. And what we're able to do in this organization is, we're a fraternal. So 501c3s, they have to give every dollar that they make over their overhead back into the community.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's, yeah. And then, of course, I do day-to-day financial planning.
Right.
For folks.
Right. So you have the financial planning for people, and then on top of that, you have a great organization that backs you up and is giving strongly back to the community. Because I know that I've been to several events that you guys are at all the time. Yeah. So that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. We had, I don't know what the numbers were for 2021, but I know from 19 to 20, we gave back over $34 million across the nation.
Holy smokes! That's
Indiana
awesome.
took $1.6 million.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think that my crew, Michelle, she's amazing. I'm sure you guys probably see her on LinkedIn every once in a while. But she was able to, between the two of us, I think we gave back over $30K last year.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just into Johnson and Marion County. So
cool.
That's cool.
A lot of fun.
That's cool.
That is a lot of fun.
What's one of your favorite stories behind that of one of the nonprofits that y'all were able to impact?
Oof. That's a hard one. I will say that one of the first, there were two, and they actually weren't here. They were back in my hometown. I was able to do a matching fundraiser for the library that is relatively new from my perspective. But it's amazing how what one might consider to be not so much money can go so far. We were able to match a fundraiser and give them, $2,500, which was huge. It literally doubled the amount that they had raised.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now we're talking new laptops, new books, upgrading the technology within the library. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's pretty impactful. We built a fence for one of the daycares. It's a really cool daycare. It's a farm. So the kids get dropped off, and then they learn how to take care of animals while they're actually at the daycare.
Wow, that's cool.
Cow jumped over the moon. Yeah, it's a really, really awesome nonprofit daycare organization.
Really?
That's fun.
That's awesome.
So
I assume not inside the city limits.
Definitely not.
Right.
Definitely not. Yeah. Around here, I've got to work with a lot of great organizations, Kick It, Assist Indiana, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, Franklin College. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be hard to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super exciting.
It's kind of like how much of an impact can we make each year?
Yeah. Right.
So we've had one of those nonprofits on the podcast, one that I'm connected with, and so I'm technically a beneficiary of Modern Woodmen's.
That's right.
Giving back to the community through Resources of Hope, and
that's right.
They just had a grand reopening recently.
Yeah, they did.
And Renee over there is knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, she
for
is.
Foster families and adoptive homes. So
yeah, 100%.
Appreciate you guys doing that, man.
Amazing person, Renee.
It's huge.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
So obviously you've had a lot of growth during that time. So what what would you say to somebody that's maybe gone through some different routes like yourself and got to the point where you're at now? Like how for you has your personal growth, what was one of the things that you would give just some advice to somebody else that's probably maybe struggled a little bit trying to figure out the exact path?
Sure. You know, I would say that no experience is ever wasted.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of people, myself included, you know, you look back through and you looked at my LinkedIn profile or look at my experience, and it's like, hey, you know, you did honeybee farming, you know, you worked at Chipotle, you worked at Starbucks, you're a financial advisor, like you've literally touched almost every industry. You don't have 20 years in one industry, you know, so how do you have any area of expertise?
Right.
So I would say that, you know, if somebody's traveling a similar path, finding a vehicle in which, or finding a career in which you can take all those experiences and use them becomes the thing, because no experience is wasted.
Right. Well, and I mean, like, there's a running theme. I don't know if you see it, but like, I totally see the coaching theme and guidance, and with that, it's definitely run through, even though so many of those areas are so vastly different.
Yeah, the experiences for me give me an opportunity to connect with folks. You know, when I sit down with a family or even with a business owner or someone along those lines, and they find out that I was a honeybee farmer, right, or an equal experience that maybe they have had, it's an opportunity to connect, and that's huge. With regards to coaching, 100%. You know, when I started out as a financial representative, the goal for me was how quickly can I get into a role where I get to coach, where I get to
get back to your passion.
Yeah, help both from a personal and a professional perspective, folks develop. So,
that's awesome. So, what's been maybe one of the bigger deterrents during this process? Because I agree with you in the whole idea that no opportunity is wasted, but I also know that there's those opportunities that sometimes don't always feel like they're not a waste in the midst of it.
For sure, I think that from an experience perspective, one of the deterrents is more so, you know, maybe this is cliche, but just put on a cat poster, you know, believing in yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nothing is wasted.
Right.
Because there's enough people out there that'll tell you that, oh, you don't have 5 to 10 years worth of experience.
Right.
There's the door.
Right.
Or, you know, financially specific, talking about finances, you know, you're working on your 3rd year. Why would I give you my retirement plan?
Right.
Why would I trust you with my life savings?
Yeah. What makes you qualified?
What makes you qualified?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that we always have a choice, right? So I think that I can look at that, or anybody can look at that and say, well, that's a deterrent.
Right.
Or you can look at that and say, no, that's an opportunity. Whether they choose to work with you or not in any capacity, finances or not, that's going to be their choice, and that's okay, one way or another.
So how do you think how did you overcome that? Like, how would you overcome somebody coming to you and be like, you don't have enough experience, like, in your profession to take care of this money? What would you do to encourage them?
Because I think this is an excellent question, because I met his team.
Right.
And he's got some young leaders on his team.
And I mean,
young leaders. So yeah, I mean, talk through that.
Because you've ventured into many different things where I'm sure you've bumped into this a time or two where they're like, you don't have enough experience, like the gentleman, the bee farmer.
Right.
Like, that all seems well and good,
Your
son,
experience means nothing.
but I need you to go out here and tend to bees.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the biggest thing is just accepting it for what it is.
Okay.
Right. They may not be the client for you.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
Or using it as an opportunity, like I said, using it as an opportunity to not necessarily prove your worth or your credibility.
Right.
But, you know, there's a lot more than just credibility when it comes to finances or any relationship building opportunity.
Right.
That's where I say the connectiveness is, for me, is key. Do you really care? Do you really understand me? And when I say me, I mean like the person I'm sitting across from.
Right.
Having while the credibility from the financial or any career perspective may or may not be to somebody's liking, right? They may have this set threshold where you need to have 20 plus years of experience, and that's all good and great.
Right.
But I would say that the relationship would trump that. Maybe not initially, but the relationship will eventually trump that because they know where your heart is.
Right.
They know that you're in it for them.
Which is awesome.
Right. Relying on that, for me, number one, relationships, relying on that and the value that you're able to provide. That's also why I love Modern Woodmen, because they're going to take care of me regardless of who walks in the door.
Right.
It's not an expectation of if I do this, then I get this. It's more of I have an opportunity to give, and if folks want to continue to work in that capacity, then so be it. And if they don't, we still have a great relationship.
Right. That's awesome.
So in your passion for coaching
Yeah.
and the team that you've been building around, financial planning and stuff, in our conversations prior to all this, you're very passionate about young leaders and diversity among young leadership in our community, and you're passionate about our community. So from a coaching perspective, leading young leaders in an industry that's usually governed by more seasoned veterans, we'll say.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you in terms of how you pour into young leaders and the things that you're trying to help them grasp along the way?
Well, I would say it has nothing to do with finances, to be fair. Whether I've coached soccer or whether it's been other coaches in soccer or whether it's, been at Chipotle or Starbucks or whatever role that I've been able to take on that allows me the opportunity to grow and develop folks. It has nothing to do with the actual content. That comes. And typically it comes on their own. Like that's the craft that they need to spend time in. They need to do their research. Will I guide them through it? Sure. Will I hold them accountable? Absolutely. But there's more to coaching leaders or growing leaders than the actual content, right? Than the technical side of the job. It's more so, what kind of values can I instill?
Yeah.
What can I foster that maybe they already have, but they're not fully expressing it? What can I polish? What can I make that is showing up raw? And, I don't want to say shape it, but mold and shape it to where, they're leading, but not because they're setting out with a predetermined, I'm going to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
But they're leading just naturally because they're following the values that they're convicted in.
Right.
They just happen to lead through finance, or they just happen through soccer, or whatever that looks like.
Right. The content of whatever you're going about is the vehicle through which you communicate your values.
Sure, absolutely.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
And again, the
That's
relationship, helping them. If I have a great relationship with that individual, and the trust is built there, then their willingness to allow me to be a part of their life and help grow them,
Right.
that's set in stone, and that's good to go. The content, I'm not really worried about.
Right.
Yeah.
Per se.
So who along your journey was the coach who poured into you?
Wow. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have quite a few. I can remember right off the bat, one of my soccer coaches. He was also, I didn't really know it at the time, but a pastor at one of the churches in town. It was actually his wife. I'm not a big guy, right? I'm kind of small. So I was the runt of the group for the most part on the soccer field, and she always, during tryouts or anything like that, she always made sure that I made the team, which was huge, because everybody was, not only was I the runt, but everybody was 2 years older than I was as well.
Oh, wow.
So, Kathy was great. And then her husband, Bill, poured into me. School, I always had at least one or two teachers. We're not here long enough to go through the whole list, but in high school, I had an art teacher, a math teacher, and an English teacher that really pushed in ways that I would say even like at a college level, if that makes sense, which you may or may not get at a high school, but just pushing that helped mold and shape my identity a little bit more. And then, I don't know, then I guess I learned from experiences. Once I got on to college, it was kind of like, all right, I went to IU because I went to Rising Sun with the graduation class of 63.
Wow.
IU's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right?
Slightly, numbers-wise.
A little bit.
But yeah.
There might be 63 people in one room.
Yeah.
One
In
class.
one
My chemistry class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m., we had over 250 in one hall. And I'm like, oh, there's my entire high school. Yay.
Yeah.
Right?
But I'm not
world.
just a number.
That's right. Different world.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, you have a perspective on story, that you value story in a very unique way. So tell us a little bit about the value of story and kind of how you see that working in and through our lives.
Yeah, I'm big. You are 100% correct. I love stories. I was just recently, I left the program, but I was pursuing a doctorate in information systems and communication. And everything that we were learning was all big data, collecting information, from everybody. I mean, our iPhones do it, what have you. And where my pushback on it was, data is just a piece of it. Without the context, which would be the story, data is useless. If there's no story, if there's no context by which we can insert the data or understand the data, then it's useless. And so, I look at, the course of time, and you can look at stories that have survived. Well, why have they survived? Well, if you peel them back, I'll make my English teacher proud here a little bit. If you peel them back, you can find those values packaged in the story, right? They may show up a little bit differently for everybody depending upon their worldview, right? Depending upon how they grew up. But stories are the vehicle. They are the context that enable one to coach, enable one to teach. Walt Disney's made a fortune off of it, to be fair, but that's kind of the gist of it. I firmly believe that stories are the information system for communication. Makes sense?
So true.
100%.
So if we can be aware of that, it allows us to do quite a few things. It allows us to create pretty awesome stories and teach and coach.
Right.
But it also allows us the opportunity, or enables us the opportunity, to kind of look at what stories we're reading consciously and subconsciously.
Yeah.
Right? What stories are being read to us, and then we can have an active participation in that, whether we choose to agree with that story or not so much.
Right.
Right.
I don't know if I'm making sense. You guys get me rambling a little bit.
No, that's good.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm
with
following. It's definitely a deeper level. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll throw out a silly anecdote real quick, because you said data without context makes no, there's no sense to it. My teenage son wanted to buy a weight bench for the basement, so he borrowed my wife's Facebook Marketplace to search for a used weight bench.
I thought you were going to say credit card.
No, he's got his own account. But here, the context is, this is a 16-year-old boy looking for a used weight bench who doesn't have Facebook, Right. Now my wife is getting ad after ad after ad after, because big data says, you want a weight bench. And my wife's like, no.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the context, but on a more serious note, because that's where we go. There's a word that's been woven throughout all of our conversation that I want to back up to, kind of at that foundational level. You're worried. You look worried.
Yeah, I was like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. You mentioned within story that when you peel it back, it reveals the values. You mentioned in coaching, it's not about the content. It's about amplifying the values, right? In your office, in your home, if you had one value plastered on the wall, what would you go to?
Just one
What's
value.
that?
Just one value.
I mean, you can maybe have two, but
I was going to go with 5. But
if you nail all 5 quick, go for it.
Go for it.
So there are 5 that I've kind of
Okay.
I try to, as much as possible, because we do have our imperfections.
Right. Very human.
Absolutely. And the 5 that I kind of revolve around are, wisdom, power, courage, unconditional love, and faith. And each one of them kind of embody, they kind of wrap around trust and awareness and all of those things. But, wisdom is the correct application of knowledge through experience, right? Courage is just the ability to then implement or do said things based upon the wisdom, even when it's really tough, probably more so when it's difficult. Power is acknowledging the influence that we have on other people and taking responsibility for it. Nice. Versus just being blind. And power took me a little bit to get to, because I always have a negative connotation to the word power.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Kind of go hands in hand. Like the financial career has helped me with money, because I've always had a negative connotation with the word money.
Right.
So power is more so owning that and having responsibility for the influences that you have on other people's lives. Unconditional love, not to say that it's cliche, but I firmly believe, again, these being my core values, that benefit of the doubt, everybody should be loved.
I love that. That's good.
Meet them at their place, not yours.
Absolutely.
And that's the unconditional part. And then faith wraps it all together, right? So faith is kind of that piece of, the world's going to tell you 5 million different reasons why none of those 4 will work. Have the faith that, you can have great relationships, you can live your life to the fullest by just following those 4.
Wow. That was really good.
That was solid. And to think I was going to force you into one.
I appreciate you letting me have the 5, yeah.
So tell us about the
good.
one value system of all 5 steps, right? That's good. I love how each one leads into one another and then is wrapped at the end.
With the faith.
Yeah.
And those are, when I look at, we came up with our own core values within the district. And what I found is that trust is a huge component of that, right? And that comes with faith. Like, what is trust? It's the faith that somebody's going to uphold their word.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But those 5.
That's cool.
We can
That's
sit
cool.
there.
Yep.
Do you think it's worthwhile for young leaders or any leader, any age, any, demographic whatsoever, you think it's important for them to sit down and think through things like that?
I think it's important.
Clarifying their values and...
Yeah, I think it's important to have reflection in your life. So whatever that is, it's different for everybody.
Right.
And it could be, the 15 to 30-minute shower. It could be the journal. It could be whatever, the cup of coffee, tea. But I think that taking the time to reflect upon the experiences, I also believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So if you have that as a core belief that everything happens for a reason, then you can reflect upon, well, this was awful or this was great. Why did this happen? And kind of figure out something, gain something from it. So for young leaders, the good, the bad, the ugly, having the opportunity to kind of reflect upon what just happened or happened maybe in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
We're meaning makers, right? So making meaning out of whatever that incident or experience was.
Right.
If they can do that, then it's going to give them the opportunity to become more aware of others and the experiences that they go through. And then getting back to the ability to connect, build relationships. If you're going to lead, you better be good at that.
Yeah.
The coaching insight as well as the psychology side of this, this is all really great reflective information that if you're a business owner and you're not using some of this, I would encourage you to do so.
100%.
Yeah.
Listen to Coach Beau.
Yeah.
Because, truly, at the end of the day, these are the things that help people sustain life and help people grow and get further down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can have, in my experience, you can go through, right, and not reflect and still be successful.
Right.
You can still do that. We call them the fortunate ones, or we call them they always land on the right foot or whatnot.
Right.
But your influence and your impact will always be limited because of your limitation of not reflecting.
Right.
Your impact just is that much smaller than what it could be.
Right.
That potential is not ever actually reached.
So take us down the practical road of that then.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Uh-oh.
I know. I love living in the clouds. So
I know.
practicality.
So
here we go.
Here you are, you're a family of 4. Y'all are hopping, right? Your wife's got her own thing rolling.
Yep.
You got 2 kids. You've got extracurricular stuff that you like being a part of.
Sure.
But then your 8 to 5 is also involved in the community. And so I see you out at events in the community. You're always representing, on evenings, weekends, whatever. So life is on fire at times, right?
And
You certainly
exhausting
feel
at
like
times.
that, right? So what is the practical side for you of how do you find that time to, what are the tools, what are the things you do to kind of provide that time, guard that time to reflect?
That's difficult. I will say that in the last 2.5 years, it's been hard to find that time. Up until then, I would say journaling.
Okay.
I was very much, I love to write. I love to reflect. When with career change, buying the home, moving across the country, COVID, 2 kids, all that jazz, I would say that it's been very difficult to find, and it has to be intentional. Like, I've found that if I don't do it, and it's more than just putting it in my calendar, like making it sacred, for lack of better terms. I still write. I don't write as much as I used to. But sometimes it's just been having a cup of coffee to myself and just thinking, what am I doing today? What did I do yesterday? Where do I want to go? How do I want to get there? I don't do it enough. I only know that because of what I was able to do and how clear things were back then. That time's coming.
You shoot for daily, weekly?
I shoot for daily. It ends up probably being more weekly.
Right. Right.
I shoot for daily, though. I do try to as much as possible. I'll carry a journal. Like, I'll have a notebook with me at all times, because if I do have downtime, somebody's late for an appointment or I'm early, that's an opportunity where I'll try to eke in 5 to 10 minutes and just get thoughts down.
Right.
For sure.
So the value of that over scrolling social media for 5 to 10 minutes is huge for you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Others' thoughts?
We'll leave that,
or my own thoughts?
where it is. Yeah.
Right.
We'll leave that where it is.
Oh, man. Well, Beau, we're so grateful for you,
thank you
coming on the podcast, letting us twist your arm.
Yes. Thanks for putting up with us today.
No worries.
Yeah. How would people find you if they're interested? Whether it's coaching or financial planning, whatnot. How would they get a hold of you?
You can always find me on LinkedIn. Beau Jackson. Just search that on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook for sure. Modern Woodmen on our website. You can literally search, financial representatives in Greenwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can always stop by too. We're off of Madison Avenue, so if you're in and around the area, we're just across from Con Pediatrics. You're always welcome to stop by. Chelsea and Michelle will be at the front desk. We'll love to have you in the office, but
You're glad to sit down with a cup of coffee with anyone, right?
Oh my gosh, my wife, when we first got together, she's like, I'm gonna figure out a way to make money off of you and coffee. Because when we first got together, I was at so many coffee shops,
right?
And just visiting with folks. So yes, always up for a cup of coffee, always up for a cup of hot tea.
That's awesome.
Right on.
The occasional beer.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back here in just a moment.
Jason, we are very fortunate with the group of people that are, bless us with their time. I don't take that lightly that, so many of these leaders that come in and talk with us,
they could be making money.
That and they're very busy, right?
Yeah.
So for them to carve out 2 hours ish to come in and talk with us on the podcast it means a lot to me.
It does. It does.
But I will tell you that Beau is a phenomenal guy, and I just really appreciated his insights on, his coaching aspects, on his insights on the fact that he has done so many different things. Honestly, there's a lot of people look at me and go, you don't always know what you're doing either. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Or like, you've done so many different things and that it doesn't all go together either. But I will say that I totally see the theme of the coaching throughout his life and his ability to help people and coach them and help grow them. It's just been, when you look at different snippets of his life, I can see why you'd be like, well, how does all that go together? But then if you look at the bigger picture with everything he's done and all the things that he's learned, he's definitely an amazing coach.
Right.
And the fact that he's out there doing financial advising at this point is just, it's exciting. I bet you he has phenomenal clients.
I think there's a mindset in there that I think a lot of people get hung up on. That, numbers aren't my thing. Financial planning, it's not what I'm made to do in life. And I love that Beau just kind of rises above what he called the content, right? And he's like, but that's not my purpose. That's just the vehicle by which I coach.
Right.
I'm raising up leaders.
Right.
I'm impacting a community. That's just the way I do it.
Yeah.
And so many people get caught up in the actual function of the job sometimes.
Yeah.
Of my mission, my purpose in life. Maybe your mission and purpose is bigger than just the function of what you're doing.
Right.
So how can that be the vehicle? How can that lead to other things? And I appreciate that he's nailed that at an early age. Just kind of going, this is what I'm about. And it doesn't matter if I'm bee farming or not bee farming.
Bee farming.
Is it bee farming?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He was
risk getting stung
right
by collecting honey. Honey farming, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, honey farm. Either way,
Beau, you're gonna have to come back and set us straight on the terminology of
the bee farming community.
That's right. It doesn't matter what you're doing along the way, and that was cool.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna go to the values.
Yes.
Toward the end.
I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
Because I think those are key.
If you're like me, I listen to podcasts on 1.2 or 1.5, right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that you need to slow it down and go back.
Yep.
And
I totally agree.
I mean, he's talking about reflecting too, right? So,
right. Then there's that.
So reflect on that, man. Just take some time and really walk through your values.
Yeah. I almost was like, can we hit pause? Because I needed 5 minutes.
Right. I mean, like, I just started jotting down mission, vision, and values for, I'm a part of a number of organizations, from the church to a new nonprofit to a new for-profit business to another business that I'm hoping, wanting to launch in the near future.
Right.
That's a lot of mission, vision, and values.
Right.
And it's easy for me just to sit on that level. What about myself? What are my personal values?
Yes.
And I think
picture.
I'm going to take some time to continue reflecting on that.
That is good.
I know I've got some, but I couldn't. If you asked me what are your values, I would not. I would have to meander around a little bit to come to the answer. And I loved that was locked in.
Yes,
that was cool.
Oh,
that was cool.
We got. I know when we got off the recording. I was like, "Did you have that scripted?" And he was like, "No." And he goes, "I've done a lot of reflection on it."
Yeah,
but
he's done a lot of journaling,
a lot of reflection. So, but he didn't have it scripted for today. But boy, did it flow! I was like, "Wow, that was amazing." I wish I could be that spot on with my life and what my expectations of things were. Like, it was impressive.
Yeah.
What do you have it written down? What they were?
No, I did not write them down.
Okay,
we'll have to go back and
they were good.
listen
I remember several of them, but I didn't want to butcher them. So I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to this.
The one that got me was power.
Yes,
that it does have such negative connotations, but recognizing the power you have over people and owning that influence that you have. You know, that was huge. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, thanks for hanging out today.
Hey,
it was another great day.
It's always a pleasure.
Always good to talk to Beau.
It's always a pleasure.
I know that. This is the only time we've talked to Beau on the podcast, but I talked to Beau. I always enjoy talking to him. So
we've got a couple of great interviews coming up. So we've got a leader who helps organizations and teams with employee engagement, people, culture. Just met him recently, and just phenomenal dude. So I'm looking to having Adam Binkert on.
Okay.
I hope I said his last name right. And then we've got our first best-selling author coming on the podcast.
We do?
We do, man. We do. We talk all the time about these, the 5 voices. We talk about the leadership tools from Giant.
Yeah.
We get to talk to the author of 5 Voices, 5 Gears, 100X Leader. And he's got a new book coming out called The Peace Index, Jeremy Kubicek.
Yes.
He's going to be on the podcast here in a few weeks.
Oh, that's all so exciting.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either.
I mean, we love our local, but this is a guy who has spoken into the content and context of this podcast.
Right.
In huge ways without even knowing it.
Right.
I mean, he's had influence on us without even knowing our names.
This is the thing that we always refer back to. It's like, hey, have you done your Peace Index lately? Like,
that's right.
You need to check it.
That's right. Yeah. So we're going to talk more about that in the coming weeks. But we're looking forward to that. So in the meantime, give us a like.
Yeah, subscribe. Well, and if you didn't catch it earlier, the information for Beau will be in the show notes. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah. Shoot us a review. I'm just going to stop talking. You want to finish it?
Yeah. Give us a review. Give us a like. Send us an email.
That's right.
Thanks so much for listening.
You guys are great. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.